Hello, everyone. On February 24th, 2026, we mark 4 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It is a tragic anniversary, one that carries unimaginable loss, sacrifice, and pain. Millions of lives have been affected. Soldiers and civilians alike have paid the highest price. The true number of lives lost is still unknown, but the impact is immeasurable. From the very beginning of this war, the United States has stood with Ukraine in its fight for freedom. Beyond government support, many ordinary Americans felt called to act. Some even volunteered to serve on the front lines. Today, we are honored to speak with one of them, Adam, a local Cape Cod resident, an American soldier who risked everything. Using his own resources, he traveled to Ukraine and fought alongside Ukrainians on the front lines. In this interview, we will hear his incredible and deeply personal stories. Our hope is that this conversation brings greater awareness to what is happening in Ukraine, honors the bravery of those who continue to fight for freedom, and reminds us of the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people. Please keep Ukraine in your prayers and continue supporting those who are defending their homeland. Thank you for being here. Well, welcome. Welcome, Adam. Thank you so much for coming to Changing the World TV, and thank you so much for your incredible sacrifice. And tonight, and if you're watching during the day, our purpose is for you to share your story, your heart, and for us to just bring awareness about Ukraine, what's going on, because it's not in the news like it used to be. And unfortunately, we are in February in 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. But in February, we know we are going to celebrate full-scale invasion 4 years anniversary, which is insane. And just to think about the amount of people who sacrificed, soldiers, young people, my personal friend, friends, my aunt. I'm from Ukraine, so this issue is very personal to me. And it's unbelievable. And a lot of people have very broken spirit and in the brink of giving up because it's been 4 years. Imagine those people who day in and day out war every day, and mentally, physically, it's so hard. People cannot even imagine how difficult it is. And tonight, I would like to hear your story. And can you start with just telling us who is Adam and what brought you to Ukraine, and just your background and your story before Ukraine?
100%. So my name's Adam. I live on Cape Cod. I grew up on Cape Cod, and I'm proud to continue to live on Cape Cod after moving abroad for a while. I work in the nonprofit sector, and service has always been important to me. I was raised Roman Catholic. My father and grandfathers were in the military, and that was always ingrained on me. Do unto others, be a good neighbor, and show up if you have a friend in need or just somebody in need. I served in the Army National Guard from 2000 to 2008, and I served as a foot soldier in the infantry. I didn't see combat in the American military, but I was deployed overseas to Bosnia for peacekeeping. And my last few years, I served as a squad leader. So, in charge of about 7 to 9 people. And that company had seen extensive combat over in Iraq and I believe Afghanistan as well. So it sounds odd to say good, but to have the book smarts of all the training, the real world experience of being in Bosnia, and then learning from and leading people who are more experienced than me. Like I said, 2000 to 2008, so when I was much younger, in my 40s now. And when I saw what was going on with the Ukraine, I was compelled to take action. I was really inspired by President Zelensky when America offered him asylum. He said, I might not be saying it verbatim, but said, I don't need a ride, I need bullets. And And also the incident at Snake Island when the Russian Armada was basically attacking St. Martha's Vineyard or Block Island. And the military there basically said, no, we're not going to surrender. And
I said something inappropriate.
yeah, well, I think it was appropriate. If everyone Google it, it was appropriate for the conversation that was being had. But those two incidents really, it made me aware that although it was across an ocean, that these people in this country that I'm watching be attacked were very much like me. And there was very much that American spirit of, don't tread on me. And I really appreciate
freedom
that.
or death, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what brought me to enlisting in the Ukrainian International Legion. The fact that, one, this is one of the most significant geopolitical incidents in the history of mankind. And two, on a personal level, to see such devastation unprovoked and unchecked, I couldn't stand by. So
When did you step on the soil of Ukraine?
I stepped on the soil of Ukraine, I believe it was December 31st.
Wow, December 31st, right before New Year's.
Yeah, it was either right before New Year's or right after. I don't recall.
2023?
2023, yes. And yeah, I crossed over from Poland. And
was it easy process to get into Ukraine and sign up into international?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I was surprised because I guess that's one thing people don't realize about Ukraine. It's huge. Like, this isn't some small third world country, and not that there's anything wrong with those countries, but this is an industrial, economic superpower in Europe. And I didn't, even looking at a map, I didn't realize like there's a considerable distance from the West Coast to the eastern border. And so fortunately, transitioning into Ukraine, that wasn't necessarily an active combat zone, and that afforded me the opportunity to get acclimated before deploying further east.
What's your first impressions of Ukraine? What did you see? Where did you go?
First impressions of Ukraine, it was surreal. So before I went to, say, boot camp or basic training, there was an interview process. So for the first 2.5, 3 days, I was at an abandoned school. That's where they had people who were enlisting stay, and I was by myself. And it was really, really odd because the school and all the cubbies in the lockers, because this was like a elementary school, all the little shoes were still there. Backpacks were still there. Stuffed animals were still there. It was decorated for the holidays. So that surreal, I don't even think puts it in the right context. It was just very, very odd. And then...
Was it abandoned completely?
Oh, it was abandoned completely. So that was shell shock, if you will, but in a very good way, because it was like, all right, this isn't America. This isn't a reality that I know. This is my first step on this journey. The one thing I learned very quick, that Ukraine has great convenience stores and great gas station food. So there was a gas station down the road, and I was able to get some pizza and a hamburger
and hot dogs. I think my husband Andrew loves their hot dogs in the dough.
Yeah, it's like a corn dog.
Yeah, corn dog.
Yeah, so that's one thing. If you ever go to Ukraine, go to their rest stops because the food is awesome.
Great. What about the people? Did you meet a lot of people?
I met a lot of people, and it was interesting because there was a language barrier, especially with the people who met me and brought me to my interview process. But everyone was super friendly. They'd come and make me meals, and there wouldn't be words. It was just, here, eat.
Very hospitable, right?
Yeah. They're incredibly friendly, and very appreciative of the commitment of people who aren't Ukraine coming over to try to help. So, but yeah, that was so odd to be in a place that should be filled with children and should be filled with joy and learning, to be there by yourself, preparing yourself for combat, and for the trials of war.
How was the training? Was it obviously not easy? How long was it? And did you get to know your partners, your so-called brothers in combat, right?
Yeah, my brothers and my sisters. Training, it was different than Army training. I'll just kind of leave it at that. I would say it was more of a refresher for people who had previous military service, but it was not as intensive as what I had experienced in the United States Army. Fortunately for me, I had already gone through all that training and I had had that, experience. But still, labor intensive. For me, the biggest thing was getting my legs strong enough to be able to march for miles and miles and miles. That was something, as a vertically challenged man, that's something I always had struggled with the Army, because you'd have guys with long legs and they'd go faster. So I think that, for me, sounds silly, but that was the hardest part of training, getting used to having 25, 50, 70 pounds on you and just walking, especially in the winter, walking through snow, walking through mud. And I was there about 2 months in the basic training base, and
With different people from around the world?
different people from around the world. So you figure there were different classes or groups, if you will. So people who had been there longer, they had gone through training more, so they would cycle out and go to the front line. But yeah, it was fascinating. Everyone from, obviously, Ukraine, a lot of Polish, European, but also a large contingent from South America, Brazilians, Colombians. There were, Canadians, Swiss. There was one gentleman from Nigeria. So it truly was an international legion. And having the experience of getting to know people when language was an issue at times, you kind of learn how to communicate more with your eyes and your heart and your actions than your words, which I actually appreciate. I wish people would act like
what
that.
I'm very grateful for you that you quietly paid the price, which is equipment, and in order to get to Ukraine, there's a lot of money financially that you have to spend. And the equipment that you wear on you, it's very, very important. It's like your armor, and it's part of you, becoming part of you. You have to really know all the things around you. Basically, it's becoming like your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's very expensive to get the right equipment. And I know that you paid the price. You quietly raised money, maybe, and your own money, and just you don't have to say the number.
Yeah.
I know you're a very humble guy. Just thank you so much for the sacrifice. I don't think we give enough credit for people who quietly go on the front lines without name. They don't want to be praised. They just quietly do the job and to defend the most vulnerable. And you did it. And what stood out to me is that how tender you spoke about connection that you felt. We are filming on Cape Cod, and Cape Cod is very village-like a community, small community, and you felt very connected. You felt kind of similar in a way that, and for me and for people who never been in Ukraine, it will make such a connection to them that it's not that different, right? So can you speak on that a little bit? You mentioned a story how you encountered village children and they baked you cookies.
Yeah. At the town or the village that we were stationed at, like our home base, if you will, we would do our daily patrols, and in the village square, at times there would be children there, and they'd make us like sweets and things like that. So that was really kind. That's what keeps you engaged, because you see literally in front of you who you're fighting for. But yeah, I would really equate it to, given how large the country is, like a mix of New England in the Midwest. And that was something that I think was to my benefit, because the weather is similar. I think it's maybe like the seasons are maybe like a month in advance in Ukraine, a little bit faster. But it was something that mentally I knew, so I was able to
Adjust.
adjust to it. And
Yeah.
but yeah, Ukraine isn't some foreign country, if you will. I think a lot of people, if they were to go and visit the cities, visit the small towns, visit the communities like Hyannis here, they would find a lot of similarities with the life that we lead. A Europeanized one. There were a lot of things that reminded me of like Germany, but it's not as unfamiliar as people would think. And if people took the time to learn, they'd realize that you can see yourself in that country and those people very easily.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Can you now paint a picture where you were stationed? I know you were sent to the east, and you had a base, and then you had a front line that you had to be positioned time to time. And can you describe as much as you can, without mentioning details, what it was like? And we will, of course, talk about that moment of epiphany, I would say, of transformation, when you actually faced true combat and when you looked death into the eyes. I never had this experience, but if you could tell us more about that.
So in the town and village that we lived in, think of it like a small compound of cottages. So we were fortunate that we had roofs over our heads. At times we had electricity, kind of had to wire that ourselves, but no running water, no refrigeration, and those necessities that we take, we take for granted. That was a shell shock, to be like, oh, okay, we got our weekly supplies. We have all this chicken. What do we do with it? Like, we have to eat all our meat in the first 2 days and cook it because we have no refrigeration. So that was interesting. On the other side of that coin, though, in town, there was a pizza and burger shop, and we would go there regularly. So that was another thing that really kept me connected to my home, as well as my home away from home. The duality, I guess, if you think of it, of our living circumstances as well as the place that we were living. So we're very fortunate for the position that we were in. Our position on the front lines, which is further east of where we were living. I don't know if the anecdote will track, but have you ever seen The Never-Ending Story?
I don't think so, but I'm sure someone.
There's a scene in a bog where a horse dies. The young man's horse dies, and to me, that's what I thought of when I walked into our position. It was just mud and gray, and to one side was an endless field of sunflowers that were dead. It was the winter, so obviously were. And then to the other side, there was a small hill that, other soldiers. But where we were at, literally 6 shallow graves that we were stationed in. We were positioned in that line.
Did you
that we
say
had
graves?
Well, so foxholes, but so shallow holes. I guess that's a little
as
morbid.
Deep underground as possible, right? To be safe.
Yes. So for me, I could be on my knees and I wouldn't hit my head. But that was the stark reality of what we were dealing with.
Was it muddy? Was it?
Yes, it was money. By the end of it, we took some pictures with, our squad when we
Was
left.
it cold?
It's freezing cold. I almost died of hypothermia twice.
How long was your position? Like a day or?
We would be there for 24 hours and then go back.
To your base?
No, go back to I guess it was only maybe like a half mile away, but it was a very small village that was destroyed, but we, would find a house that was vacant and we would spend evenings there. It was kind of like one day on, one day off. So I think, one day on.
Can you speak on destruction a little bit? I remember something stood out to you. The schools, abandoned schools, completely destroyed, where just recently there was life there and kids were attending those schools, and hospitals, and that they were specifically, Russians were specifically aiming those civilian infrastructure, right?
Yeah, that was their strategy. And that was something that made me very angry. It's one thing for soldiers to attack soldiers, but to specifically target hospitals, schools, community centers, like infrastructure that is essential to the civilians living. We're not talking about military bases or, radio relays or anything like that. We're talking about, places where people live that hold no strategic value other than to break the spirit of the people they're trying to conquer. And to that point, in the frontline position, there was, I believe it was a high school, that in the boiler room of the basement, that was that area's headquarters. And they had a large gymnasium that 3 out of the 4 walls or 2 of the 4 walls were just blown completely open. And it was just odd, to be standing there in a gym where people play basketball or whatever game, and then there's no wall, and you're seeing tanks drive by as bombs drop on that position.
Surreal.
It was surreal. Yeah, it was the strangest thing. Or to the point where there was one of the cottages that we were staying in near the front line. We just got off position off our first night, and that was my first day in combat.
How was your first night? Was it so, you know how people describe war through the video games?
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
It's fun.
No, it's not. It's not. The first night was a success from the perspective of we did our jobs. I felt that after having that experience that, okay, I am built for this. I do have not just the physical capability, but more importantly, the mental resolve and fortitude to show up to work and then take the day off, or clock in, clock out, and not have it dwell on me. You'd have some people that, there's one instance where we were evacuating down a road. The cottage we were in was actually hit by artillery right out front of it.
Wow.
And I was knocked down, and that was, after the fact, that was scary because I was...
You were knocked down?
I was knocked down, and I thought it was all fun and games until later on people were asking me how I was doing, because I was not unconscious, but I had lost my memory for a period of time. So there was that few moments as the blast happened that I guess it's actually a defense mechanism. Your brain kind of shuts off.
Wow.
So that you can experience. But as we were, retreating back to headquarters, bombs going off, and they're like, "Oh, they're coming for me!" And I was like, I literally said, "I'm like, no, they're not." I'm like, "They're coming for us as soldiers." I'm like, "They're not coming for you specifically." And I think that ability to kind of compartmentalize and not necessarily take it personal or even make it about me, that made it much easier to be able to manage that work environment. But yeah, it's not Call of Duty.
It's not Call of Duty.
It's not Call of Duty. I mean, we see a lot of that on TV, and you see special forces, and like all of those soldiers are amazing. That was not our league, and that was not our job. It was hold the line. This position cannot fall. Defensive war is really all about taking punches and then throwing a punch when you need to. And that is something I'm equipped for.
Yeah. Tell me about your transformational moment when you literally had to fight for life, when you were tagged by drones, right? And those drones is drone war, right? They can kill you. Those drones, it's not just drones for nice video footage. Those drones carry weapon.
Yep, they carry grenades
and things like that.
Yeah.
Can you describe that moment when we had coffee together? I was shocked by that moment when you told me it sounds like a movie scene.
Yeah. There was one day in position where we were aggressively attacked by drones. We were consistently over the course of the week that we were out there, but this day especially. And yeah, it's a little machine that flies around with bombs and you can't destroy it. Like, we didn't have equipment to shoot it down from the sky. And they would fly, amongst the trees or just over the treetops and drop bombs on us. Or they'd have video that tell artillery or mortars or tanks, this is where they are, this is where you should target. And that day, they really hit us hard to the point where it sounds silly, but I know the game Whack-A-Mole?
Yeah.
It was kind of like Whack-A-Mole. And it got to a point where my position was being hit so hard that I left and retreated to go to another position. Same, maybe like 50
underground? Like holes?
Not necessarily. Think of it as a hole with some foliage over it. Because I felt my position wasn't safe. And going to this other position that I hadn't been to before, I was less safe, and literally, grenades and bombs going off like just over your head, like that distance.
From the drone?
From the drone. You'd hear, and then you go, and the bombs would go off. And I ended up going back to my original position that after I had left had been hit hard and had blown up the back end of it. So
by going, you mean running?
Running, yes. Running.
Or like crawl?
A mix between. At a certain point, you just get up and go. at least for me.
As fast as you can, right?
Yeah, as fast as you can. But basically my position had two openings that I wasn't able to defend. So it would have been very easy for a drone to just fly up and drop a bomb. And when I was in my position, they had hit the position I was just in. One of the soldiers was injured, lost some fingers or had fingers blown off. They were able to sew them back on. And he was evacuated. Unbeknownst to me at that time, everyone evacuated. So I was on the front line by myself. And
for real? You were by yourself?
Yes.
No one rescued you, or no one told you, let's go, Adam, let's go?
No.
Was it abandoned? Or what was that?
It was a failure of leadership. And I say that from the perspective, like we had mentioned before, war is not Call of Duty. And there are a lot of people who thought it was and were going to prove something, or I'm super macho, I'm a big tough guy. And when you got into a fight, they ran. And
then not there by your side.
Yeah, not by your side. It was betrayal. It was a betrayal. And so in my position, drone was just hovering over me. And basically it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can't escape. And there's really nothing I can do at that time to patch up those holes, because you don't want them to know you're there. They're assuming you're there, but if you're quiet, you hope they fly off. But it just hovered over me. And literally some branches and stuff above me. And for a moment, I came to terms with the fact that this is how I'm going to die. And people talk about your life flashing before your eyes. That didn't happen for me. It was more just this kind of gut punch of, wow, like this is the end. And I put my head down for a moment. I was just going to sit there and wait to die. But then fortunately, very quickly, I said, the hell with that. I'm not going to do that. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die fighting. And in that position, the only way to fight was to dig deeper, to secure my position, to make sure that I was safe enough so if they did attack, I would survive. And very, fortunately for me, the drone flew off. But that moment was transformational because it was like waiting for your execution. It was like knowing that this is how I'm going to die and now I'm waiting for it. And at least for me, once you go through that, it kind of opens your eyes to what you can deal with as an individual, as well as how you can live your life. Like every moment could be your last moment. And that's not being morbid. It's literally every moment could be your last moment. So live every moment, live the life that you want, defend the world that you want to live in. Because otherwise, what's the point? It's like, what's the point?
How deep was the hole that you were, what is it called?
A foxhole.
Foxhole.
I'd say 2.5, 3 feet deep.
Okay.
Maybe like 3.5, but if there hadn't been like a canopy of brush and woods, like my head would have been above, or my head would be above. So, but yeah, that was life-changing, because then after that, fortunately another soldier came, and a few hours later, and we were still on the front line, just 2 people with tanks and.
Okay, so someone came back.
Someone came back.
Where's he? What country he was from?
He was Poland.
Oh,
yeah, I love me. The
Polish.
Polish people are great. Polish people
Nice.
are great. Yeah, Polish people have your back. But it was funny because in the nighttime, things kind of wind down, other than that first night. We were attacked the first night. And we were just kind of hanging out, smoking cigarettes. Like, whoa, that was a crazy day. Like, that was a tough day at work.
Oh, right. That's your work, right?
Yeah. So it was just odd.
Wow.
There were so many times where I would say to myself, like, this is like a movie, and like people are shooting, we're shooting, bombs are going off, things are exploding. But I was just like, whoa, this is like a movie. This is weird.
Yeah, and you're part of it.
Yeah. I said that to myself quite often. This is weird. Like, this is weird. But like I said, I think that ability to be pragmatic and disconnect, that was why I was able to become acclimated and have a level of proficiency. I'm built for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your sacrifice, for this incredible bravery that you demonstrated, not just with words, but with action. You actually went. You didn't just watch the news and donated a couple bucks, but you actually went, which is the biggest sacrifice. You were ready to lay down your life for the freedom, for the people, for what is true, for what is just. And the war is still happening. And with this interview, I wanted to focus on I know the war is ugly on its own, but on the beauty of the people and the culture and what Ukraine stands for. Mm-hmm. And most people, of course, there's corruption, there's political aspect of it, which is dirty. We cannot hide it.
As with our politics right now.
And the Ukrainian politics, it's always been, is, and forever will be. We are people. And when there's power, there's chance that there is corruption. But with that, there are people like you, Ukrainian soldiers, my friends, who laid down their life, who had pure motives, who wanted to defend, to stand up. Like you said, you don't like the bullies. I remember you mentioned that.
I don't like bullies.
Yeah, and people like that who just quietly went for the people. Their motivation was not politics, it was the people, to defend their homes. And I just want to say thank you so much. And yeah, Adam, it's amazing. So we will call this interview From Cape Cod to the Front Lines of Ukraine. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your heart, your story. And
one last thing I would like to share,
please.
because I think it's important. One, reiterate, Ukraine is like America. It's that important. We should fight for it. But as I left the country, another thing about the size of it, it took about a day and a half. Trains, buses to leave the Eastern Front to get back to Poland. And on that 23, 25-hour bus ride, there were two other soldiers who were also leaving. They had been there for about a year and a half. And as I'd mentioned, there were a lot of people that think it's a game, they talk big, they act like a tough person, but you never know until you're fighting alongside them. You don't know how they'll be unless you're with them. So they were kind of talking to each other and war stories, if you will. And at first I was kind of like, okay. But after spending, hours upon hours upon hours with them, I realized, oh no, these guys are legit. So we started talking about our experiences, and I shared some of mine. And one of them, he was Belgian. He was Belgian and an individual from UK. He was Welsh. Took out his phone and he shared a video of some of the combat that they had been in. And
where?
I don't know exactly where. They had been in Bakhmut though, so it might have been Bakhmut. I'm not sure, but we were attacked consistently, relentlessly, but mainly artillery, drones. Not necessarily. There was only one instance where people came to fight us. And I just looked at these two guys, and they were probably in their late 20s, early 30s, and I went, you guys are warriors. Thank you for your service. And the other soldier that was there, who had been kind of quiet, immediately leaned forward and said, thank you for your service. And I think that is a quality that people need to realize, that there are good people, Ukrainians, Europeans, everyone from around the world who go there to serve. And one thing that I'm proud of that I shifted in certain respects during basic training was, rather than the macho and I'm the best, by the time I left, the communication was more, I appreciate you. Thank you. Like, please, thank you. Manners, rather than I'm a tough guy. So that was something. But that moment with those two soldiers, that we all had traumatic experiences, but in my opinion, their experience was more traumatic. To be able to express my appreciation and to have that appreciation expressed back with no expectation, with nothing other than thank you. That was something that it was meaningful to experience that as I left, because I was not happy that I was leaving. I was very sad, but it was the right decision. And that thank you for your service, that's something that I heard from Ukrainians time and time again, whether we're in the big city, whether in the, a village.
Yeah.
And when I say big city, we're talking about New York, we're talking about Boston, we're talking about LA.
Kiev, right?
Yeah, Kiev.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Metropolitan areas. So, but that's one thing I wanted to share, because there is a lot of negative, but that positive energy of simply serving because it's the right thing to do.
The right thing to do.
That was a message in a moment I needed as I left.
And I'm thankful that you're alive, honestly. I remember I was in touch with you through Facebook, and there were moments when it was scary moments, remember? And all I could do is pray. Mm-hmm. And I was just feeling for your wife, and we were in communication with your wife. And
yeah, I had my luggage or my gear as I flew over.
You lost it.
Yeah, well, the airline decided they didn't want to put my luggage on the airplane, or they forgot. Unfortunately, one of your friends who was doing humanitarian aid was able to come to my house, picked it up.
He did?
Oh yeah,
I didn't know.
Oh yeah, my God, I wish I remembered his name. But yeah, he picked it up, and then when he got in country, he mailed it to me, because we weren't able to connect.
Oh, good, it happened.
Yeah, it was essential. It was essential
I didn't follow
equipment.
up because I knew that this happened and I tried to help. And I was like, maybe maybe I should not know. Or
Yeah, no, it was a gentleman
Okay.
from New Hampshire. I forget his name.
Yeah.
But no, that was, yeah, so you, like your Ukrainian brothers and sisters abroad, you supported me at home and while I was traveling. So I just want the world to realize that Ukraine is important. The Ukrainian people are important, not just as individuals, but for the world. Truly the Ukrainian war, the invasion by Russia, is World War III. And the fact that we haven't shown up as a nation and as a United Nations to defend this country, as well as our own interests, it's the most shameful moment in history, in my opinion, or one of the most shameful moments of history when it comes to a nation's responsibility to the free world.
Yeah.
We failed in that regard.
It seems like Ukraine was on its own, to be honest, like in the beginning. And if not brave people, I don't know, it would be not survived. And we have support from the world and we are very grateful, but it's not enough.
No.
So right now is just very discouraging for many people, and all we can do, pray and not give up. But we don't have enough people to fight. It's not unlimited resources. So we really hope that those people in power somehow will find peace and diplomacy or whatever. I don't even know what's the solution. God knows, but...
and not just to fight, people to provide humanitarian aid.
Right.
As you'd mentioned, chaplains, like to have that emotional, spiritual support would have been incredible, my time over there. So fighting against unchecked aggression and evil doesn't always have to be with your fists. You can do it with your heart. You can do it with your mind. You can do it with your voice. You do it with your actions.
Right.
And that's something I really want to communicate. Everyone can take a stand and everyone can find their way to fight. And we all need to do that.
And I would like to add, again, you can pray and you can donate. You can go on our website, and now we have a direct feet and hands in Ukraine, and that we have chaplains who actually go on the front lines. Vadim, one of them, we want to say hi to Vadim, who such a bravery of the roof. He was Sunday school teacher, taught children, and he went to rescue those children, like evacuating them, literally going to the worst front lines and just rescuing people. And right now it's harder. He said that front lines moved closer to Ukraine, and those villages that used to be safe, not safe anymore. Right now, if you feel compelled, one of my friends who actually lived in Ukraine here, Irina, she used to cut hair. I think you met her on one of our events. Unfortunately, the Shahed drone flew into her apartment, so she doesn't have windows. So if you're interested to donate for that need, to patch up the windows, please go to our website, changingtheworldtv.org. You can donate, click donate, and this money will go to help her out to patch the windows and things like that. So again, thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in, changingtheworldtv.org. That's the website and YouTube channel. Please subscribe, CTWTV. We'll see you later.
Just what it's gonna take.